inner critic is probably the most difficult part of our consciousness to work with. And that's mostly because we usually misunderstand it. We always try to avoid its whispering about how we haven't gotten anything done, especially when we are procrastinating, or we ignore its endless criticism when we complete a project. And it's obviously understandable why we would ignore this part of us. I mean, instead of receiving any praise from it, all we receive is endless criticism, and it feels like an absolute disaster. Because of this kind of connection with this part, many psychologists focus especially on working with the inner critic as a completely individual part that needs special attention and understanding. The first step of integrating the inner critic back into our consciousness is by understanding where the inner critic comes from. And so we're going to start from here. I tend to see the inner critic as the separate bad guy. Let me tell you the truth. The inner critic is not a bad guy. What will be shocking for you to discover from working with this complicated part is that the inner critic actually takes the form of many people from your childhood. The inner critic agreed to take the role of the judge, who will embody the conditioning and the social norms in order to keep you safe. This part notice that there is progress if it indicates where you are lacking or needing to improve. It took this model from how the people around us treated us. And the reason why we see the inner critic as the bad guy and we have such a difficult relationship with it is because we always think that it's actively working against us, which is not true. This practically comes from the defense mechanism that we have formed against the inner critic. Can you see how we create war within our own consciousness? These are all different and unique relationships between different and unique parts of our consciousness. The founder of IFS therapy has an amazing explanation of this. Pay attention to how parts can alter their behaviors without knowing that they can be self-destructive.
They all have naturally valuable talents and resources to lend to us, but as we go through life and encounter traumas and attachment injuries, they shift from their naturally valuable states into roles that sometimes can be quite destructive to us, not realizing that they were roles that were necessary often when you were in the middle of a trauma or had a toxic parent, but they get frozen in that time, and so they think that they still have to do this for you, and often don't even know how old you are. Often, if you were to ask some of these, what we call protector parts, they would think you're still 6 years old, and that therefore they still need to do this for you. So good parts forced into extreme and sometimes damaging roles, hating the roles, would love to get out of these roles. But so that's one basic premise, that everybody has parts, and the goal isn't to get rid of them. The goal is to actually help them transform. One way we do that is called unburdening. So the concept of parts carrying burdens, as defined as extreme beliefs and emotions that came into your system from the outside world through a trauma, through an attachment injury, something like that, and graft onto and attached to these parts, is a key concept in IFS. And drive the operation of the part thereafter, almost like a virus. So the release of these burdens allows parts to immediately transform into their naturally valuable states.
When we go through trauma and feelings of shame, our parts choose to take roles so defensive that they themselves don't even realize that those behaviors can be harmful. This perspective can even explain the origin of the most dangerous attitudes that indicate psychopathy, sociopathic behaviors, narcissism, codependency, personality disorders, etc. These so-called mental illnesses are the result of years and years of neglect, which allows for the resistance and the hunger of many unmet needs to continuously grow. When it comes to psychopathy, Sigmund Freud wrote that psychopathy happens when there is a complete diminishment of the concept of shame. Do you know which part of the consciousness is mostly responsible for the feelings of shame? The inner critic. The inner critic is what Freud defined as the superego. Fighting the inner critic is the wrong approach, because without your ally, you won't be able to tell how you impact people. You will also won't be able to tell which are your most important priorities and values. And the most dangerous people walking on this planet are actually the people who succeeded in disassociating with the inner critic. And do you really want to be a part of that group? But the good news is that the inner critic will never stop calling for you. I'm not saying that the inner critic is a good guy either, because the part also can be unaware of its own behavior. It usually plays the bully character in our mind. This doesn't mean that we should make the inner critic our enemy, but in fact, this part can be our greatest ally. We need to remember that it puts on this costume of the bully because it is convinced that it does this for our best interests. We need to remember that when the parts of our consciousness form, we are children. The reason why they take over us is because they know that at the moment of their role formation, we are defenseless. We are not capable of many complex cognitive processes, and so their motive is to protect us and to help us adapt to our environment. The inner critic is essential because they give us the first cognitive concepts of good and bad, in order to give us a scaffold that we build ourselves on, and as we grow up, we dissolve and upgrade our moral concepts of right and wrong. And this is exactly what Kohlberg's theory about the stages of moral development suggests. The matter if we cognitively go past the level of post-conventional morality is dependent on the degree of willingness to become aware of the self-destructive and the resistance, i.e. parts that are afraid of connection. To understand the inner critic even more, look at the studies of the self-harming behaviors of animals. What scientists found out is that animals, us included, hurt themselves in order to escape from the situations where they are at the mercy of someone else's abuse. And what this means is that we hurt ourselves in order to turn the attention from someone hurting us to ourselves. Self-harm is coping, and the parts such as the inner critic do this with our best interests at heart. This is pretty ironic, isn't it? The self-harming behavior or the addiction is never the problem. The real problem is the causation of it. What makes us be drawn to that addiction or to that self-harming behavior? We have a pain limit capacity that can run out. And that's a very important thing to remember when it comes to any form of self-harm. Because self-harm comes when we are dealing with pain that is absolute hell. And it has to be so unbearable in order to form parts that are so self-destructive. Remember, self-inflicted pain is much more tolerable because we feel as if we have some degree of control. That's why we often choose self-inflicted pain rather than pain inflicted by somebody else. When we are at the mercy of someone else, the pain is so intolerable that it surpasses our pain limit capacity. This applies especially in situations in which your life depends on somebody else. Here is a perfectly explained example of Teal.
For example, imagine that what somebody in your life rejected you for was the fact that you are so sensitive. This is disapproval. And it's painful enough that your inner critic is going to try to protect you by making sure that you aren't so sensitive. It's going to constantly remind you of how bad being too sensitive is. It's going to try to discourage you from being too sensitive. If it criticizing and shaming you for being sensitive doesn't work to change your behavior, this inner critic's then going to escalate. It's going to become more and more abusive. It's going to become more and more intense in the way that it goes after you for those things that could cause you to meet with disapproval. And this could escalate all the way to what we call this dynamic of shame, whereby you are creating an internal triangulation against the entire part of you that is sensitive. Your inner critic does this because it thinks that if it gives enough disapproval for this thing, preemptively before anybody else gets to, you will be motivated to change it and fix it and you will stop doing it, whatever that thing is that causes you to meet with disapproval or painful consequence. And this will get you that sense of belonging and safety that you want. In this example, the truth that the self-critic holds is how important belonging and safety are to you and how much you need those things.
We created our inner critic in order to make sure that we get our needs met, that we are alive, we adapt and belong in the communities and feel emotions such as happiness, belonging, and being loved and accepted. We can't disregard and neglect the protector that we all created, can we? What the inner critic usually does is that it makes sure that we belong with the people around us. It is trying to keep and protect our standards and what matters the most to us. And the more we don't listen to the societal standards that it embodied, the more abusive it becomes. This is when they actually start acting like a bully more and more. All of this is happening because disapproval is the inner critic's worst enemy. And so it thinks that if it internalizes even more disapproval, it will help you change a certain thing or certain behavior into an acceptable one. This is especially important because it is much more tolerable if it disapproves you first before anyone else does. The inner critic wants you to feel belonging, especially with those around you. And we will find out more about this after we do the following exercise. The point of this exercise is to express our emotions towards the inner critic in order for it to understand that its attitude can really hurt us, despite the fact that it does all of this with our best interests at heart. The first step of healing our inner critic and integrating it more into our consciousness is letting it know how its behavior impacts us. Because trust me, it's quite not aware of that, and we need to establish a connection with it that is genuine. So we must talk to this part without any judgment. And this exercise will help us relieve and express these judgments towards the inner critic in order to get closer to it. I call this exercise the 5 layers of emotions. Even though this exercise is especially used in expressing emotions between people, especially when it comes to conflicts, this approach can really help express all of the resistant parts, along with their reasons, of course, to the inner critic. The expression starts with the first level, which is expressing anger, blame, hurt, repelling, or resentment. When we go through this first level of emotions, we use the phrases like, I hate it when, I am so angry that, I'm fed up with, I am filled with rage when. After this, when we feel ready, we go through the second level, which is expressing disappointment, sadness, or the remaining hurt. We use, I feel so disappointed that, I feel so sad when, the thing that hurts so badly is, this is why it hurts me so badly. The third level helps us dive deeper. We express the fear, insecurities, and deep wounds. We use the following phrases. I'm so afraid that. What I am truly afraid of is, it scares me when. It reminds me of. The fourth level helps us move up on the emotional scale, which expresses understanding, empathy, responsibility, and regret. We use, I am sorry that. Please forgive me for blank. It's completely understandable that blank. I regret that. I understand that blank. The fifth and the last level helps both parties move on to the highest part of the emotional scale by expressing love, wishes, solutions, and connection. This is the highest vibration that is the match to God or the universe. This is basically the same energy that we transformed from expressing the pain and hurt to expressing love and connection. This exercise is basically how a healthy conflict should go, where we transform the energy of hurt and disconnection into the emotions of love and connection. Emotions are energy, and we need to provide space for each other in order to help each other transform this energy in a natural way. In order to do this, no matter if we are doing this with another person or an internal part, we need to keep in mind to provide space and understanding for the emotions of the lower vibrational scale. We need to consciously practice patience and listening together. If you want to dive into this exercise more, if you need to resolve something with another person, I recommend watching Teal's video about this same exact practice. So now you have all the guidance that you need in order to express everything and contact your inner critic. In order to help you more with how to go about this exercise, I actually have my own personal example from when I was slowly starting to work with my inner critic, and this exercise is from 2 years ago. I will read this to you. I hate it when you bully me. I really can't handle the fact that you suck away my happiness from anything that I want to do. You're killing my joy, happiness, confidence, and love for all of us. I know that you're doing this in order to keep us alive. But have you ever thought that sometimes your attitude can hurt me? Have you ever thought what the actual cost is for staying alive? Fuck it, it's better for me to die than to live this way. Why does it have to be a whole torment? Why do we have to abuse ourselves like this to survive? Why do we have to cry on the inside in order to stay alive? I'm so angry that I wish you never existed. I know that if you haven't done this, we wouldn't have been stuck in this hell. I'm fed up with your bullying. I have never literally heard one single nice word from you. You want to protect us, but you're killing us. I'm filled with rage when you underestimate my abilities, just because I have a different brain structure. Tell me, how can I be the person that I want to be when I can't? How can you expect from me to be good enough for mom and dad when our brain is structured in an unsafe environment? Is it even fair for you to expect that from me? Tell me, what did I do wrong for you to hate me? I'm so angry that I hate you. I'm so pissed off because you bully me even more because of my brain structure. Well, sorry, I didn't ask for it. I didn't ask to be in an unsafe environment. I didn't ask to be terminally ill. I'm so unnerved when you blame me for something that wasn't completely under my control. My brain wanted to save us. It never did something against you. I'm so angry at you. You don't even care enough for us to check, and you're hurting us. I'm so mad at you for that. I still don't actually know how my brain is working. I can't bother with you. I'm so angry at you that I can yell at you my whole life. I'm so mad at you. I'm so mad at you. I'll always be mad at you and I'll never forgive you. Do you know how I belong to the wrong people because of you? Aren't you even seeing that? I even had sex with the wrong person because of you. I destroyed my body and I crossed my own boundaries. Are you seeing that? Are you seeing that? Aren't you seeing that? I'm so infuriated for how you were hurting me all of these years. I hate you. I hate you with my whole heart, and I'll always hate you. Because of you, I'll be feeling the shame of being vulnerable in front of the wrong people for years and years. I'll always be mad at you. I'll always hate you. I'll always scream at you for what you made me do. I feel so disappointed because you never considered my feelings. It is easy to help someone for whom you don't even know how they feel. I feel so disappointed that you never loved me and you're never here for me in a true way. I'm so sad that you never asked me how I feel, but instead you treated me like nothing. You treated me like an object, like a doll. You treated me the same way like my parents. And tell me, did you really make things better? Tell me, how much have you fixed me so far? How much have you fixed what was and what is still wrong with me? The thing that hurts so badly is that you never helped me when I was all alone. In the most catastrophic periods in my childhood, when I needed myself the most, you were never here for me. Instead of helping me, you made me feel more and more alone. I'm filled with so much rage when you do the same thing over and over again. You're not here when I need you the most. I'm so afraid that I will be stuck here in this hell because you will continue to treat me like I am your worst enemy and the most terrible failure. The truth is that I need you in order to survive. I need you in order to get out of this place. I need you. What I am truly afraid of is the fact that you will turn against me the most when everybody in the whole world turns against me. I'm really afraid because I don't want you to leave me alone anymore. It also scares me when you change my mind when I want to speak or sing. I'm afraid that I will never be able to do what I love doing because you're going to kill that inside again and again and again. I'm afraid that I will spend my whole life being jealous at everyone because they'll be able to pursue what they love doing while we're dying from the inside. I'm really afraid that our whole life will pass while we're standing at one point and being so scared to live. I'm afraid of that guilt, that sadness that will overtake us later in life. I'm afraid because we'll stand on the same point with the same feelings of hate, lack of confidence, low self-esteem. I'm afraid for you too because you'll never be happy like this. It reminds me of that time in childhood when Sarah was shining with her identity and with what she loved doing while no one was even looking at us. I'm afraid of being stuck at the same place where you praised Sarah more and you hated me. I'm really sorry that you had to take care of me and protect me in order for me to stay alive. I really can't imagine how unbearable the whole environment felt for you, along with the responsibility of defending me in it. I really can't imagine how hard it was for you and impossible for you to handle such a thing. Please forgive me for not listening to you. I could never consider the fact that you did all of this with my best interests at heart. That's why I never wanted to listen to you. I also couldn't look at the fact that consequences exist because I hate consequences. They make me feel like I'll never be able to live the life that I want. Because of this fear, I could never listen to you. I know that everything that you said to me was true and it was a valid consequence. It's completely understandable that you're having this role in this way because there is no other way with which we will survive. If you hadn't eased my pain by adding more, there wouldn't be any way for this brain and us to survive. I know that you didn't have another alternative to choose. I regret that I was never here for you, and I never saw that you're hurting as much as me. Especially when you're on the front all the time, it must be tiring. I really understand that you want me to progress. You want me to be proud of myself, and you want the world to be proud of me. I know that you want us to meet our needs in ways that you consider as the most possible. I'm so sorry that you had to choose such a fucked up role. I'm so sorry that you had to take such a self-destructive role. I understand that you didn't have another choice. I really understand that. You thought that in this way you're going to save me from death. I really want to be here for you. I want to help you by listening to you and to respect what you have to say to me. I forgive you for what you did because it's clear to me that you too were not aware about the consequences of your attitude. I hope that I can be your ally, not your enemy. I'm really grateful to you because I'm still alive. Without you, I would have never even been here where I am. Thanks to you, we have the opportunity to experience happiness. We have the opportunity to create what we want. Thank you for always being here, even in the moments when you were praising Sarah, because I know for sure that you did all of that for me. You learned to love me in that way. I appreciate you because you were the only one who cared about me when no one did. You were the only one who cared about me when I was a helpless child. And I love you because you have so much wisdom and amazing intelligence, as well as love. You were the parent on whom I relied when I was a child, and I'll always see you and love you as my parent. I know that we'll have a lot of conflicts, but I'm glad that we still have the opportunity to start over, together this time. You can already notice the flow of this exercise, especially how much I needed to express the hate and the resistance at the beginning. That was because the resistance culminated over time while it was suppressed in my body and in my mind. As we go up, it gets shorter and shorter because there is more and more relief. Remember, this is individual for everyone. There is no wrong way to do this. If you want to, you can use lists of emotions in order to be more specific about how exactly you're feeling. They really help if you have trouble with expressing feelings. You can also include sensations that you feel. Physical or sensory inputs are even better. I actually used these lists of emotions. I will put the link down below if you need it or if you want to use it as well. It's very informative and it's a very good list. I also cried a lot when I was doing this exercise. Expect yourself to cry. Let yourself cry. Crying is the release of resistance and emotions. If you don't let yourself cry, you won't be feeling any relief or resolve. and this exercise won't be as effective. Because the inner critic needs a lot of time and patience in order to heal and become more self-aware. I will find many ways and make more parts in this YouTube channel in order to find more ways to establish a healing connection with it. And let me know what you think in the comments down below. Just like the inner critic, make every part of you your ally, especially your weaknesses. Disconnection is not the way with which we protect ourselves from people. It's quite the opposite. When we turn the silver elements of us into gold, we won't be even afraid to be vulnerable anymore because we recognize the power of choice. You have a choice to turn the inner critic into your greatest and strongest ally that you can possibly imagine. Thank you so much for watching. Did you like the visit in the Wunderkammer? If you did, please like, subscribe, and share this content if you see it as helpful. Did you also notice the artworks in this video? They're not put accidentally. If you want to understand my philosophical reasons of why I put them in the video, you can become a crow on Patreon. In that tier, I'm posting the paintings and the contacts they have in the video. You can also see them like Easter eggs. But only crows can see through the messages, because they are messengers themselves. You can also become a raven. In that tier, you can ask me for answers and guidance about anything you're curious about, and you're going to receive a high quality answer. I also have playlists on Spotify under my name, Katerina Lunas, if you need something to trigger and enhance your emotional experience. Can you hear the footsteps? They're the footsteps of illusion. It's coming. But what are you going to do about it? Accept it or do something about it?